Let me say this, that 6 million Jews were killed, and it was a plan to kill them. There was a Wannsee conference in Germany where officials sat down at a conference table and planned to kill 11 million. The Semites of the Jewish religion did not believe that anybody would do that to them. And when people began to talk about something is being planned to destroy us, I suppose then also that people said, oh, that's a conspiracy, nobody would do it.
Are you seriously suggesting that there is a comparable plan in the United States today? Are you really?
See, wait a minute. We have to see the thing that we're not doing and the thing that we are constantly avoiding is talking about racism. Now, let me tell you what I understand racism to be. Racism is a behavior system that is organized because white people are a minority on the planet. They are a tiny minority of the world's people. The black, brown, red, and yellow people are the world majority. That's right. Not only that, white people are genetic recessive in terms of skin coloration. You see somebody like whose skin is white, if they have sexual relations with a black person, the product is colored. And there is the fear of white genetic annihilation. It existed in Europe, it existed in Germany, it exists here today. And this is why people, I mean, it's written about in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, in the Washington Times, when there are discussions that go on like this. By year 2080, the majority people in this area of the world are going to be the blacks, the Hispanics, and the Asians. Oh my, we must do something about it.
Mr. Cobb.
Now, you see, it's the same discussion that goes on in South Africa.
Let this gentleman respond.
But let me just say, finish this quickly, and then I'll say.
You've had a good long run, but so.
Let me just say this: that if we understand the white fear of genetic annihilation, which was why Willie Horton could be used as a very profound symbol by the Republican Party to win its election, then we will understand what is happening to the black male in this society. The black male is the threat to white genetic annihilation. Right. And so he is profoundly attacked in this society. And if we begin to understand that, we understand what happens to the black family. If you remove the father, then the son is wandering around confused, doesn't know what to do, will get together in a gang, and ends up being depressed, getting on drugs, and going to prison. And in the United States, in Washington, D.C., I believe we have the second highest incarceration rate, second only to South Africa. And so in South Africa, you have black men in the work camps, and the women on the Bantu stands, and here we have the black men in prison and the women in the projects, and the male children going unfathered. Now, I say that racism is responsible.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, folks. Welcome to the Radical Roots Roots Rundown, our daily midday. I'm trying to probably do maybe Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Our little short condensed show. I'm still trying to get the technology down, so sorry about that brief odd moment of silence there. But Payron Baxter here. Welcome to Friday. We made it. I know it feels good, and there's always shit to talk about. So let's get into it so I don't take too much of your time up. Again, Payron Baxter here, who ain't got nothing to do besides talk to you on the Roots Rundown. Have y'all noticed that this country has gotten a lot more racist? I have, and not just on just a feeling or a vibes notion, but ultimately also on a structural perspective. There has been a lot of changes. The last Friday, I don't know if you guys have probably paid attention, but this is why I pay attention to this stuff. I'm a political sicko. The Trump administration released their United States of America, their strategic, or excuse me, their security strategy, UN. Let me get my words together. The United States Security Strategy of 2025. And if you haven't read this thing, or if you haven't gotten any updates, I'm going to tell you a little bits and pieces about it, and I'm going to use the information from a good sister, Dr. Stacy Patton. If you don't follow her, if you don't know her, please make sure you like, share, subscribe her. And of course, before you even do that, make sure you like, share, and subscribe the Roots Rundown and the Radical Roots podcast. We are trying to build this thing out. We're still knocking off the rust. We're about 10 months in on the main show proper, but this is only episode 2 here with just me trying to run everything. But you know what? No excuse. We got to make it better. But we need your help. We need your support. So please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and follow wherever you see the Radical Roots on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and however you're watching this. And please make sure you let folks know. So, like I was saying, the Trump administration released their security strategy plan of 2025 on Friday of last week, so a week ago today, and it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. So I'm going to pull it up here just so you can know where to find it, where to locate it. Go. So here we go. Here it is here. The National Security Strategy of the United States of America. And as you can probably understand, there is a lot of flowery language in here about just having a strong America. To my fellow Americans, over the past 9 months, we have brought our nation and the world back from the brink of catastrophe and disaster. Do you feel like we're back from catastrophe and disaster? I do not feel like we're back from. I feel like we're running into catastrophe and disaster. Over 4 years of weakness, extremism, and daily failures, my administration has moved with urgency and historic speed to restore American strength at home and abroad, to bring peace and stability to the world. Now, as we know about all demagogues, all they can do is actually pit themselves against what something else is, right? They're not actually doing anything for you. They're not actually making your lives better, more secure, more taken care of, more fed, more well slept, more rested, more educated, more healed with medicine. None of that. But they had to be against the Biden administration or anything a Democrat does. So there is a lot of course, fluff here. I don't think Trump wrote this. And there's his squirrel's heartbeat signature right there. And I'm quite sure that someone else probably put this thing together. But ultimately, there is some very concerning language. Some very concerning language. Again, I ask you, do you feel like this country has gotten more racist over the past year? The answer is undeniably yes. And if you think it hasn't, probably because you're the racist. Sorry, not sorry. You're probably the racist person who's like, I think the country's going well. I like it. I like that we've had more unemployment since the time of COVID and the time of the Great Recession. That's good. Trump has to destroy the economy. He's got to. He's got to destroy it to get rid of they, them. He's got to destroy it. He got to destroy the economy to make sure to keep them illegals out. It doesn't make sense. But you know what? White supremacy never makes sense. But what the things that they put in here about specifically what they want from the Western Hemisphere, which basically just means anything within the hemisphere is ours. We get to colonize, we get to run. And if you do not follow the United States of America's edicts, then you will be subject to the boot of the violence of the United States of America. Again, we are the only country that has almost 800 military bases around the world. We are the world's, not even police officers, we're the world's terrorists. Ask those countries if they want those military bases there. The answer is probably no, because not only do they bring attraction, they also bring violence. They bring the control of the imperialist government of the United States military to shores that they are not native to. They bring their customs. They bring violence through the military themselves, with domestic violence and rape allegations and all these things, drug smuggling. There's plenty of great books on this topic, but I'm going to read okay, here we go. How American strategy went astray. To ensure that America remains the world's strongest, richest, and most powerful and successful country for decades to come, our country needs a coherent, focused strategy on for how we interact with the world. And to get that right, all Americans need to do what exactly is what we're trying to do and why. and then go into the strategy, and it starts off with some. It's almost like they're locked into like the 1980s, early 90s, because they're getting into the Cold War and all the wars that America has been in. And you guys know this: America doesn't. We're not good at winning wars. I know that might hurt for a few people to hear. We are not good at winning wars. We're good at starting wars and then finishing wars. And then in the meantime, a bunch of people get rich and a bunch of people die and a bunch of people are harmed and a bunch of people are put in harm's way. Um, but yes, so this strategy here is ultimately something that is, is worrisome. Now, what is more worrisome was how much of the mainstream media who is either covering this, they're just looking at it as some sort of like declaration of, this is Trump's, international policy with Europe. But the problem is that he gets into some very, very Nazi-esque shit, and he's putting it and codifying into law, and that should scare all of us. I don't care who you are. And Dr. Stacey Patton, again, I don't know if you guys follow her, but please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to her Substack. She's a brilliant writer. But I'm going to read some of the things that she's analyzed with it, because when I read this, I was like, man, this would be good for you guys to hear. Because when I read this, I'm like, I didn't read all the entire paper, but this is something that I think we can get into. She says, for nearly 80 years, U.S. foreign policy, however violent, hypocritical, and self-interested in practice, claimed allegiance to the rules-based international order. That means treaties and not alliances, international law, NATO, and the United Nations. The idea, at least on paper, was that the world learned something from World War II. The lesson was that nations define security through racial supremacy and raw dominance. Catastrophe follows. This strategy says, well, actually, that's a mistake, and I'm not being hyperbolic. That's what it says. You read it as if you read it. And again, they're trying to erase the past 70 years of civil rights, right? So everything from the 1960s to now, the MAGA movement feels like that is all a threat to their white male hegemony, right? This is why there's attack on women's bodily autonomy. We saw that during the Biden administration, and the Biden administration was not muscular enough to fight back against that. He didn't want to stack the court. He didn't want to expand the court. He didn't want to make sure, that he was even going to talk about it. I think he said abortion for the first time in like 2022 or something. So like, again, these are the steps that authoritarian governments take. They always go after the marginalized first, especially women's rights. Then she goes on to quote them. We reject the disastrous climate change and net zero ideologies that have so greatly harmed Europe, threaten the United States, and subsidize our adversaries. Now, the thing about when we talk about net zero and climate change, and they call it a disaster, what they're saying is we want to continue to pillage, take resources, and extract from countries that we would consider third world or developing countries. What those are exploited countries. These are countries that are of the global majority, meaning the global majority of the people on this planet look like me, unfortunately. They don't look like Trump or Stephen Miller or Pete Hegseth, and they know that. What did the beginning video state with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who again comes from 3 generations of doctors? She laid it out there. That was in the 1980s. What I'm reading now is putting into practice what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was saying. They are trying to institutionalize their fear and anxiety about the erasure of white people, and thinking there is no erasure of white people. It's just that you're a global minority and you're a recessive minority. Meaning, there was this theory I believe in the 90s. It was the chocolate milk theory from a course of white supremacists. That if you start mixing different, basic flavors into the white milk, the pure white milk, that you will eventually run out of white people. But again, if you made a sustainable society for your women and your men, you would have more babies. Black and brown people, we always been having babies. Don't forget, the cradle of humanity is in Africa. Everybody came from. Everybody got some African blood in them. I'm 1% Cherokee. You 1% Negro. Trump, you 1% Negro. Pete Hegseth, Christy Nome, doggone Christy Nome, shoot her dog and her goat, Christy Nome. And I'm gonna get to her video in a little bit. But so yeah, continuing on with Dr. Stacey Patton's here. But when they're talking about the global, this terrible strategy of net zero, the majority of the benefit of any of the resources being taken from the global south, we always go to the global north. That's, of course, the west. That's Europe. That's the Americas. And the brunt of all the exploitation is always owned by the global south. That is India. That is Africa. That is South America. That is all these places where we extract from, parts of Asia. And not only that, but the climate outcomes, I mean, we're all going to, honestly, folks, we're all going to feel it eventually, but we have a little bit more of a runway here, and the global south feels it a lot faster, and a lot more urgently, and a lot more acutely. That is what they know to be true, and they don't care. They are trying to accelerate that, right? Because they don't see human life all to be equal. They see things as capitalistic cogs in the wheel, and how they're able to extract from those people. Okay, continuing on. And then she's quoting them again. Should present trends continue, the continent will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less. It's far from obvious whether certain European countries will have economies and military strong enough to remain reliable allies. Right up front, the document argues that international cooperation weakened America, not militarily but spiritually. Now we're getting into the Christian nationalism of it all. We're getting into the white. It's the spiritual God wants to be this way, and the way you guys open up to the blacks and the browns to lead your countries, like we're seeing in London has a what I think is a mayor. The mayor of London is of Indian descent. We have Zoran Mamdani here in New York City. We're letting these women, we're letting these queers, these trans, these people who take positions in leadership, and that's too much. America cannot recognize itself. Now, what is the implicit thing that they're saying there? They're saying that America, the idea of America, because don't forget, America is an idea. This land that we're on is stolen. The land that we're on is a crime, an active crime scene. What they're saying is the idea of America has always been a white man's land. And if that white man's land and Europe in our minds ever gets changed, then that will be the apocalypse. But the thing is, some of us have already experienced multiple apocalypses. Multiple. Let me go back over here. So I'm just going to go back to the, because y'all need to see this. Y'all don't care. To hell with this. But yes, check it out. But I'm going to continue reading Dr. Stacey Patton's piece here. Let me get back to it here. Okay. According to this worldview, the real threat isn't missiles, wars, or economic collapse. It's what they see as cultural contamination, meaning too many people who don't pray like them, look like them, live like them, or love like them. Too many immigrants, too much racial and religious and cultural mixing, and too much working with other countries, sharing powers through alliances, following international rules. Fucking losers. Respecting climate agreements, listening to scientists, and coordinating with global institutions instead of calling all the shots alone. This is what dictators want. They want to be the big boss hog on the throne. That's it. They don't want to work with anybody. Now, when you have this sort of a mentality, look what's happening to America. Shit starts to fall apart. We have a bunch of non-experts in roles where you need experts. And guess what? Everything that is good does not flow through the hands of a person that believes themselves to be white. I know y'all believe that no, actually it's us. If we don't have it, then it's stupid, it's poor, it's dumb, and we should disregard it. But no, you're killing yourself. This strategy claims America must restore its spiritual and cultural health, revive traditional families, honor its past glories, and march towards a new golden age. Read that again, golden age. That is not language of national security. That is the language of white nationalism, cleaned up for government letterhead. Security in this document is defined as cultural purity. Multiculturalism is framed as weakness. Immigration is cast as an existential threat. This is textbook white supremacist ideology, whether the author has ever used the word white or not. Because when you are the default, when you've never been racialized because you've been privileged, you don't ever see yourself as white. You just see yourself as human. Everybody else has to be hyphenated. Everybody else has to be exceptionalized. Everybody else has to be brought into this conversation as how they could benefit those who are not racialized, even though Europeans invented race. I'm gonna say that again. Race is a social construct. Racism is very real. Race is made up. And until we can get people to understand that you are not a white person, you are not even the most liberal progressive. And I voted for Kamala, I voted for Obama a third time. As long as you still consider yourself white, like you say, I'm a white progressive, I'm a white liberal. You're telling me as a black man, you're telling someone else who is indigenous, Latino, someone who is Asian, I'm better than you. I'm better than you by sheer dint of my skin. And that is what we have to unlearn. And then I'm going to end it up here. Here we go. Sorry, every time I open my phone, it goes right back to the top. So do apologize about that. And then the part I'm going to get to is why we need to care as Black and brown people. The document rejects immigration, rejects climate cooperation, rejects international institutions. Climate change has been incessantly documented, measurable, and proven deadly is dismissed as disastrous ideology. Then the strategy turns towards Europe, America's longtime ally, and accuses them of facing civilizational erasure. Civilizational. It's Friday. Please let it go. Erasure. That is a far right obsession. It comes straight from the Great Replacement theory, which is the lie that white populations are being intentionally replaced by immigrants and other people of color. Of course, usually led by the Jews. So you kind of get your racism, get your xenophobia, and your anti-Semitism all in one sweet little ball. The myth has been inspired. The myth has inspired mass shootings. It circulates in manifestos, forums, and extremist networks. Now it's embedded in the U.S. national security document. The strategy warns that Europe will become unrecognizable if immigration continues, scolds European governments for suppressing far-right political parties, and suggests that as Europe becomes more diverse, it may no longer deserve its same relationship to NATO. And this is the part I want to get to for y'all. And here's why Black folks, immigrants, indigenous people, queer folks, disabled people, and poor folks everywhere should be paying very close attention to this. When a government starts to define national security as protection from diversity and difference and cooperation, that always turns into protection from people like us. Folks, that's it in a nutshell. That's what we've been seeing for the past 10 months. That's what we've been seeing for the past, honestly, since the 1960s, is that once we started opening up these channels to power to people who were always marginalized and did not have a voice, the exact same day those things happened, it was the exact same day they were trying to roll them all back. I know a lot of people like to say, well, it was, during Nixon, or, it was the Southern Strategy, or it was, Ronald Reagan in the 80s. It never stopped. It never stopped under George W. Bush. You heard Dr. Welsing there in the beginning say how the Willie Horton ad was so effective. And that was in the 1980s, 1988 campaign. We saw recently, before the murder of Charlie Kirk here in Charlotte, North Carolina, there was that Ukrainian immigrant that was killed by that black man here in Charlotte, North Carolina. That became almost a national story where they were trying to use that to leverage to say, look how bad these black men are. Now, it was ironic because it was a Ukrainian immigrant, and Trump is down with Putin, who is invading Ukraine. So it doesn't really make sense, but it doesn't matter. She fit the archetype. She was a blonde, standard, conventionally attractive white woman, and being killed by this locked black man. And they say, well, look how violent they are, even though white men commit more murders, rapes, thefts than anyone. As Dr. Amos Wilson says, I must label the indigenous as savages so I could treat them savagely. I must label the black as criminal so I can treat him what? Criminally. So this is what we're seeing on the national level, folks. But damn, we're almost already at time. But I do want to kind of get to this clip here. I did start a little late, so give me a little bit of leeway. Might go maybe as on my ticker about 40 minutes, which will probably get me about 35 on a regular. But yesterday there was some bombshell testimony in Congress, and I want to share a couple of these clips. And doggone shoots her dog and goat, Kristi Noem was in the hot seat, and I was unfamiliar with this Congressman Magaziner, I believe his name is. Let's pull this up and let's chat about it on the other side. But this was chef's kiss, chef's kiss. Here we go. If I thought that I sent it, I'm sending it real quick here. Sorry, folks. Let me play some background music. And we have breaking news, actually. Did you guys hear that the Democrats released photos of Epstein and some very prominent white men? Just be very clear about that. Then they're out. I'll post the pictures at the end, but I did want to get to at least this one clip, and then maybe next week we can get to some of the other stuff. But I'm sure there will be other things to discuss, because living in Trump's America, baby, there's an embarrassment of riches as it relates to content. Let's see here. Here we go. Yeah. So here is
how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Se-Jun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell Mr. Park why you deported him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority, by the way, as Secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much for?
I will absolutely look at his case, but I want you to remember that
Madam Secretary, the man behind you, please stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally from Ireland when she was 11 years old. She has lived here for 48 years. Because of you, Jim's wife, Donna, has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally, and she has never committed any crime other than writing 2 bad checks totaling $80 10 years ago. She is currently in prison and facing deportation. Ms. Noem, will you thank Mr. Brown for his service to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to our country.
Now, what possible explanation can there be for locking up his wife for 4 months when she has committed no crime other than writing a couple of bad checks for $80?
Sir, it is not my prerogative, my latitude, or my job to pick and choose which laws in this country get enforced.
You have broad discretion as the Secretary. You can issue parole, you can do all kinds of things, but you're choosing not to. Will you commit, again, to just reviewing Donna's case and reuniting this combat veteran with his beloved wife, who also loves this country?
I will review the case.
That was a
fatality.
Flawless victory. If you guys get that reference from Mortal Kombat. Yeah, so Congressman Magazine there, held her ass to task. And you see Kristi Noem, as we talk about white supremacy, is unable to withstand any scrutiny, right? There is no rhyme or reason why they're doing things. We have to call it what it is. This is not immigration control. This is not how you do anything. This is how you're violent. This is what the Nazis did, again, who learned from the Confederacy. So again, we are the progenitors. That is our biggest export, is hatred and violence. Don't ever forget that. That is what this country is built on. That's what they're going back to. When they're saying that the Supreme Court justices are constitutionalists and they are originalists, they mean the original intent of this country is to beat, to control, to steal, to rape, to harm anybody that is not a white man, even white men. That may sound different, but it's powerful white men that can do that. Trump isn't smart. Elon Musk isn't smart. Y'all heard Peter Thiel talk. He ain't smart. Y'all heard who else? That dude from Palantir CEO. He's bouncing around like he has an itchy hemorrhoid. Him like Carp. These motherfuckers ain't smart. Well, they have a law degree. Okay, those are just the rules of the system. Ted Cruz has a law degree, right? I mean, that we get so bogged down into this qualifications and this degreification, and this is a moral issue. And these people have no conscience. They have no morals. So that was a really good one. And then there was another clip from, let's see, this was from, yes, this was another good one here. This was Benny Thomas in the House, or excuse me, and he was speaking to the head of, one of the deputies of the FBI, talking about Antifa. Check this out.
Water domestic terrorist organization, Antifa. That's our primary concern right now.
All right, that's what President Trump did. What does the FBI say?
We share the same view. When you look at the data right now, you look at the domestic terrorist threat that we're facing. Right now, what I see from my position is that's the most immediate violent threat that we're facing on the domestic side.
So where is Antifa headquartered?
What we're doing right now with the organization.
Where in the United States does Antifa exist? If it's a terrorist organization and you've identified it as number one.
We are building out the infrastructure right now.
So what does that mean? We're trying to get the information. You say Antifa is a terrorist organization. Tell us as a committee, how did you come to that? Where do they exist? How many members do they have in the United States as of right now?
Well, that's very fluid. It's ongoing for us to understand that. The same, no different than Al Qaeda and ISIS.
No, I don't want you. I'll ask one question, sir. I just want you to tell us. If you said Antifa is the number one domestic terrorist organization operating in the United States, I just need to know where they are, how many people. I don't want a name. I don't want anything like that. Just how many people have you identified with the FBI that Antifa is made of?
Well, the investigations are active.
So you wouldn't come to this committee and say something you can't prove. I know you wouldn't do that.
I know you wouldn't do that.
But you did.
Smoked him. Now, all of y'all that grew up in black families, you know that he did the Southern, I dare say just the black daddy or the black patriarch, you know. And I'm asking you one question now. And then he gave him the headline. No. I felt that. That went to my inner child, like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm lying. Yes, sir. And you know, then even the guy, I don't know, fuck that guy, I don't know what his name is, but he's sitting there, he starts talking with his hands, and I'm like, that is something that elder black people do, they do not suffer well. No. I'm asking you a direct question. But again, just like Kristi Noem, and just like Trump, and just like Hegseth, accountability is, they are allergic to that. Why Pete Hegseth threw that general under the bus. Why Donald Trump, I don't know anything about him. Jeffrey Epstein, don't even know where he was seen. These people cannot take accountability. You will never hear them apologize, because whiteness is always meant to be innocent. And if I do it because I'm white and for whiteness, therefore it must be good. That is the direct line. And it's really hard for people to understand that, because they want to think it's about politics. None of this is politics. They are using the power of the state to enact violence on people, to terrorize people. That's not marginal tax rates. That's not making sure that the trains are running on time, or making sure that we're filling potholes, or making sure that we are securing the livelihood data, the data that proves it. That is what that means. And they're the exact opposite of that. So we're sitting here. I mean, do y'all feel comfortable with these type of people saying you're anti? I mean, at that point, the anti-fascists are the enemies and the terrorists to the fascists. Got it. That's what they're saying there, is that if you are against the fascist, you are the enemy of the state. That means that you have a fascist state. At a certain point, we got to start being real with ourselves that, hey, we live in a fascist state. And the thing is, for Black and brown people and indigenous people, it's always been fascist. It's always been two rules. It's always been, I can kill you with impunity. I can jail you with impunity. I can silence your voice with impunity. It's not new to us. Which is why when we tell you, folks that are on the ostensible left, that it is your responsibility as a person that believes themselves to be white and progressive and liberal to go get in the way of those people. I say that on the show proper. And I'm always the pushback, but I'm gonna go, do something. I'm gonna go write a postcard. The only thing that we need for you to do is get in the way of those people. I'm gonna protest with the No Kings. Your protest should have been every fucking day in your communities. But I want to live in the nice neighborhood. But the nice neighborhood, even that niceness, there's always evil crouched in niceness. It's not good. Goodness is an action. Yeah, I grew up in very impoverished areas, but they were good. I knew that we were safe. I knew I can go to Miss Johnson. I know I can talk to Miss Kim. I know, Mr. James, he's going to help fix the house. It was a community. You live in nice neighborhoods that are held together through silence and through violence. Well, I want my kids to go to the nice schools. They're segregated schools. There's schools that are always in the news for having a Confederate flag, or somebody said something racist, or there was a lesson to teach children how to sell each other like slavery to the one Black kid. That is what you are saying is so good and why you cannot rock the apple cart, because you don't want to upset the status quo. And that is how you uphold white supremacy. So, folks, I did have another story, but I'm trying to keep this show short. Again, we're going to do Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, so 3 days a week. Just because we're just still getting into this, and those are the days that I can do this in the mornings. But please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Please provide any feedback to the show. I'm trying to build this thing out where I want to engage with you guys. It's Q&A Friday. It's the first one. I didn't really tell anybody, but we're gonna keep this thing going. And those are just two stories. And again, I want to leave every episode with please look somebody up. Yesterday was John Henry Clark. Today is Frances Cress Welsing, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who was the beginning of this show. And I'll play her to play us out today. But I want you all to have a fantastic weekend. I want you to think about, what you can do within yourself, your community, because that's where it starts. It was within yourself. And if you can change yourself, you can change the world. And that is our charge that I want us all to do, is think about those who have the least. And what are we doing to help them? Not those who are just in the middle. Because then we will do whatever we can to protect that middle. So please think, how can I help those who do not have? That's our protest. The system wants us to just conform and just be happy to be in the middle. There should be no middle. There should be no middle. So today's charge, again, please look up Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and I'll play that clip on the way out. And we will see y'all on Sunday for the show proper. Peace. I'm not sure I have this clip up right here, but again, one person show. Here we go. All right. You have a good weekend.
Let me say this, that 6 million Jews were killed, and it was a plan to kill them. There was a Wannsee conference in Germany where officials sat down at a conference table and planned to kill 11 million. The Semites of the Jewish religion did not believe that anybody would do that to them. And when people began to talk about something is being planned to destroy us, I suppose then also that people said, oh, that's a conspiracy, nobody would do it.
Are you seriously suggesting that there is a comparable plan in the United States today? Are you really?
See, wait a minute. We have to see the thing that we're not doing, and the thing that we are constantly avoiding is talking about racism. Now, let me tell you what I understand racism to be. Racism is a behavior system that is organized because white people are a minority on the planet. They are a tiny minority of the world's people. The black, brown, red, and yellow people are the world majority. That's right. Not only that, white people are genetic recessive in terms of skin coloration. You see somebody like whose skin is white, if they have sexual relations with a black person, the product is colored. And there is the fear of white genetic annihilation. It existed in Europe, it existed in Germany, it exists here today. And this is why people, I mean, it's written about in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, in the Washington Times, when there are discussions that go on like this by year 2080. The majority people in this area of the world are going to be the blacks, the Hispanics, and the Asians. Oh my, we must do something about it.
Mr. Cobb.
Now, you see, it's the same discussion that goes on in South Africa.
Let this gentleman respond.
But let me just say, finish this
well,
quickly,
I mean,
and then I'll
you've
say.
had a good long run, but so.
Let me just say this: that if we understand the white fear of genetic annihilation, which was why Willie Horton could be used as a very profound symbol by the Republican Party to win its election, then we will understand what is happening to the black male in this society. The black male is the threat to white genetic annihilation. Right. And so he is profoundly attacked in this society. And if we begin to understand that, we understand what happens to the black family. If you remove the father, then the son is wandering around confused, doesn't know what to do, will get together in a gang, and ends up being depressed, getting on drugs, and going to prison. And in the United States, in Washington, D.C., I believe we have the second highest incarceration rate, second only to South Africa. And so in South Africa, you have black men in the work camps, and the women on the Bantu stands, and here we have the black men in prison and the women in jails, and the male children going unfathered. Now, I say that racism is responsible.
Okay, go ahead.